This is Keith.
This is Stacy.
This is Denny.
And this is the SKB Cyber Tech Talk. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'll re-explain here. We a lot of times folks will ask, what are you supposed to do in the event of a cyber event? How do you know you're having a cyber event? How would you identify it? What's your next steps, right? And so it's kind of an interesting thing because FDIC, who the insurance organization entity that covers banks in the United States, has this kind of very beefed up cyber protocol, right? And included in that cyber protocol are things that call vignettes, and the vignettes are basically like I'm looking at one right now. It's, I don't know, maybe 8 pages long, but it's set up like a deck of cards, and each of the vignettes sort of tackles those sort of questions. And the concept is that you take that to an IT steering committee, a bank board, something like that, because part of FDIC's process is you have to go through training. You have to train your staff. You have to train your board. They have to have answers to these things. It can't be a question mark. So you can follow these vignettes to take into a board, an IT steering committee meeting in a bank. And then you basically run a scenario, right? Customer accounts taken over. There's a cyber breach. Something's occurred. Bob walks to his computer and there's a weird icon on his desktop. What should he do? And, I don't know. I don't know if there's a ton of extra materials like this that are just go Google FDIC cyber vignette and pops up 5 or 6 or 8 of these different protocols that you could, or I shouldn't say protocol, but scenarios.
Yeah.
And so you, as a business person owner, I don't know if you've actually seen these, you could just as easily pull those up. I'm sitting here with a phone in my lap and I just typed FDIC cyber vignette, and 2 of them swing right up. One is a cybersecurity scenario. And the concept of it is just you read this thing off, and then as a group, you discuss what's your next step. And the context is just so that, when the real thing occurs, we've not just begun thinking about this. We've actually run through the scenario. We have a concept of what we should do. Right. Who do we call? Where do we go? What do we do to identify it? What do you do to Bob, who just clicked on the icon?
Do you want to go through this? Do you want to go through it?
We sure can.
Because, this is great. So the number 1 vignette description is customer account takeover. Longtime valued corporate customer is questioning withdrawals from its cash management payroll account. The bank loan officer contacted the customer and told the customer it would have to use its line of credit to make payroll. The company thought it had sufficient funds and reviewed its account statements, which showed several withdrawals for under $10,000 over the last month and one large withdrawal for $250,000. The bank researched the matter and determined that the withdrawals were made through the online cash management system by an authorized user. The customer states that it did not make the withdrawals and indicates that the withdrawals started shortly after the company received an email from the bank asking it to update the company's account information. The bank informs the customer it did not send the email. Okay, so this is pretty standard kind of what we get all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's somebody's account in this scenario, a bank,
mm-hmm.
was taken over. And now what does the company have to go through, right? So,
and you can sit back and look at that from a bank scenario, or if you're, I don't know, a small business, right? Just put yourself in that same scenario, right? Your bank account's tapped, a large volume of money for some reason that you're unaware of. What do you do? And I mean, it's kind of why I look at these, because then it goes into, step 2 on here is kind of the assessment. So what information should be gathered? Does your incident response, do you need to get a hold of local police, FBI, Secret Service, right? If it's large cash monies, right? Do you have cyber insurance vendors? Should you be calling them, right? That sort of stuff. And the context of this is to make you think about it, right? So the steps on this are,
Well,
you,
wait, but before you get into that, I think you need to look at, let's talk about the person who got the email first, because that's really kind of where it started for this person. And one of the things people don't really look at is the URL. They get an email, they think it says Chase, but maybe two of the letters are transposed. It's not really Chase, or it's Chase US dot, something. So it's looking at where the email came from. And then I think the other thing is a lot of people see that link and they click on the link in the email, assuming, the email is probably going to look like Chase. It's going to have their logos and stuff. So they're clicking on that link. And I think right there, it's important for people to look at where, the URL is coming from. And then B, don't click on the link within the email. Go to Chase's website, or, I think a lot of this stuff could be stopped just from not clicking on those links in the first place.
Yeah.
And going to the primary source. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
well, it's a really good point. And it's sort of funny because I think every time we get into a situation like this, as the IT folks who walk in the room, it's always like, why did technology fail me? And what new, gizmo do I need to purchase to make that never happen again, right? And I'll tell you, as the IT guy in the room, right, or one off, right, Office 365, great product, Microsoft 365, there's all kinds of fantastic stuff we can build into it. It can do a lot of policing of those links, but the reality is it's not perfect, and it's never going to be perfect. Right. So even if we click over it and I don't know, it's obscured for some reason, the assumption is, the system should protect me. It has tools. It has, protective measures wrapped around everything else. But the reality is, as the user, you need to take the right action there. You need to really think about it. If you don't know for sure that's the right place, Stacy, you're right. Go to chase.com on your own. Open the app on your phone, go where don't follow the link. And it's the same thing for everything. It can be your Netflix account, it can be your Amazon account, it can be your bank or your AT&T for your phones or whatever, right? But most of these organizations will send you a ping going, hey, we're trying to get a hold of you, but a lot of them also won't, right? They won't send you to a link. There's usually something in there that you should be a little bit cautious of. If anybody's sending you a link, should just really click in your brain to stop and really think about it.
Yeah, that's good user training, really. Getting all your users trained up to be vigilant about links and, really take a look at every email that comes through and make sure that it's legitimate and it's coming from a legitimate source. And if it's not coming from a legitimate source, or if you're suspicious that it's not, don't click anything and go directly to the website, just like you guys been saying.
Well, and I think once there is a problem, then the other thing is that I'm probably not going to be really open with you guys that I think I might have screwed up. And not telling you guys that information will hold back your ability to figure out what happened, where things went. It's kind of like once that happens, you when you get help, you have to be open and say, this is what happened. These are the things that I did, and this is what I gave them. Because if you don't,
it just makes things
it
harder.
holds up the process.
Yeah. And we'll find out anyway, either way. So, a couple of times that we've gone into things like that, it's kind of like pulling teeth from the user that got attacked or got hacked or was breached. It's like, hey, did you go to this website? I may have gone, but the history's there. We're able to see those clicks. We're able to see exactly where they went. Their emails. We can see where that email came from and who it was directed to.
So now that we're there and we have the situation and it happened, we can jump back in now. How do we resolve it? What do we do? What if you weren't across the hall from me and I couldn't yell, hey, Keith, I think I have a problem. Like, what would I do if I didn't have you right there?
Yeah, and I think it depends entirely on the scenario, right? So if this is a case where something happened and money went missing, we're seeing the aftermath of it, right? There's a good likelihood that it's happened, and you've probably restarted your machine and your phone 14 times between whatever occurred and the event, right? So at that point, it really becomes a process of, hopefully you have cyber insurance. If you're just an individual listening, you probably don't. But if you're running a business, hopefully you do. And I would tell you, step one kind of tends to be reach to them. They have protocols in place. That's what they're there for. It's why you pay them, right? Let them go drive the bus, because they'll involve law enforcement. They'll involve, folks to go start digging in and doing forensic deep dive stuff. We can help you just kind of start to make sure things are shored up and secured, and get in and start to help support them through their diagnostics, right? We're not a cyber insurance company, but there's a lot of times where we end up involved in the process of supporting the cyber insurance companies and their IT folks in the diagnostics and resolution of these sort of things.
I was just gonna say, and then we go along with that, we go back and make sure that the company follows the protocols set forth by their cyber insurance companies, right? Because they have, you will abide by these,
right?
You will have this minimum security. You will have multi-factor authentication,
right? But that's an awesome point, right? So we'll go down that rabbit hole for a minute, because you just keyed in on the entire thing, right? So when you sign on for your cyber insurance, and now I don't know, we just sign up for a cyber policy, and it really didn't have a lot of caveats. Most of them will come to you and say, do you have backups? Do you have antivirus? Do you have multi-factor for administrative accounts? Do you have multi-factor for cloud accounts? Do you have, and this kind of exhaustive list. And I cannot tell you in my career how many times I have somebody kind of pass that, like, we filled it out, will you double check it? And then we get the report over, and I'm like, you don't have any of these things, right? But you're going to certify that you do. And so it's insurance, right? So insurance is an actuarial game. They're out there, and they will sell you insurance. You will abide by these rules. You will have these things. You have certified that you do these, you train your users, you have long passwords, so on and so forth. And then an event occurs, and, call your cyber insurance folks, right? Because that's a good step one. And the first thing they do is come in and with their forensic folks, and they're like, wait a minute, you didn't do any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And the problem then becomes, because you certified that you do it, they're under no obligation to pay out damages at that point, right? Uh-huh. So, it's kind of it's a super common thing, Oh yeah, no, I signed that paper. It's all good and fine. Gets shoved in a drawer someplace. We pay our cyber insurance every year because that's what we have to do as responsible business owners. But we haven't really looked at it to figure out if, we're really doing what we're supposed to. And that creates a logistical issue, Right. You start looking at where the cyber companies 10 years ago were paying out on, password hacks and, crypto viruses and things like that. And it was like, they're losing money hand over fist just because it's floating out the door because they weren't asking these questions. Well, fast forward a bunch of years, I'm working with a bank, and the bank brings their survey over, and they're going, well, it says on here, we need to have multi-factor on all the administrator accounts on everything in the bank. And I'm going, at the time, that's pretty heavy-handed. I've not seen somebody come point blank and go, you're going to do this. And we ended up sitting down with, a whole team from the bank, from this insurance company. It's a big one. I think it's Travelers or somebody like that. And we're talking to their actuarial folks on this thing and the underwriters, and they're like, yeah, because every one of these crypto events that we're running into is caused because somebody got an administrative password and this thing just went nuts inside the environment, encrypted everything. All the data's gone. The only way we get our data back is $2 million or something like that, and so they learned, right? And they said, okay, fine, we'll cover you, but you're going to go do this.
Yeah, we'll cover you, but now you got to abide by this checklist.
Right, exactly. And the checklist changed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't certify, we're not renewing you, and it's that simple. And I'm going, all right, well, it's not a hard thing to do. It's just a big change if we've never had to do it before, And so thus we went forth and we put it in and everything was good. But